All right, well, were you ready here with Jen?
Yeah, we'll bring Jen Pan on. She'll join us now.
Perfect. Hey, everybody. We're joined by friend Jen Pan, host of one of the co-hosts of the Jackman Show and a phenomenal writer. How's it going, Jen?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, it's
Excited
been
to
a
have
pretty.
you.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. It's been such a funny day. We're all sort of exhausted, honestly, about talking about the Reddit story. I'm not sure anymore. Like
You're
new gems
exhausted?
coming up.
I'm.
It's
I
it
could
kind
go
of
from.
started off it kind of started off being like the feel good story of the week, right?
Yeah.
I'm still feeling enthusiastic about it. I'm like
Yeah.
energized. I'm there. I mean, part of things annoy me about it, but that's part of what's so invigorating, I think, about it.
I mean, it has been funny to watch people cry. It has been very funny to watch MSNBC pundits freak out about the sanctity of the market that has now been perverted. I mean, it's funny enough to say that, but it's even funnier that they might actually believe that, knowing all that they know.
Did you guys catch that some of our right wing favorites, like Ted Cruz and I think Don Jr., were trying to seem like they were on board with the Reddit people and saying things like, "Well, this just shows that big government and Wall Street and big tech are rigging the economy against you." And it's like we don't. I mean, yes, but it's kind of like we don't buy that you think so.
Yeah,
It's
I feel like the Barstool Sports guy is the savviest proponent of that line so far. I don't know if you guys are up on his sort of what he's running right now.
Yeah, have you listened to him? I mean, I know he's been ranting about it, but I mean, how exposed do you think he is on the Reddit bets? Because he honestly is the kind of moron who would dump a lot of money into that and now be really pissed on the back end because he's getting screwed.
Now he's like freaking out that he can't log into Robinhood, and so he's ranting online or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been a crazy day.
it's been very
Let's.
funny.
I think a little piece of sound that's kind of related is
Yeah,
this clip of this the new speaker. Is it Jennifer Psaki?
yeah,
Speaking about Jennifer Yellen's conflict of
Janet
interest.
Yellen.
Janet Yellen, sorry. And I got to do a two-step process to share it with both you and the viewers. So let me start that. Here it is.
Man, it's so good to have White House press briefings again.
Yeah, where the
That
truth
was the
is.
most boring controversy ever. It's like, honestly, like this is where reporters just get their slop to regurgitate out there. It's like this is not anything holy.
And here we go.
And I had a follow up on the markets and everything that's happening with GameStop. You did mention, I believe, yesterday that the Treasury Secretary is monitoring the situation and she's kind of on top of it. There have been some kind of concerns about her previous engagements with Citadel and speaking fees that she has received from Citadel. Are there any plans to have her recuse herself from advising the president on GameStop and the whole Robinhood situation?
Well, just to be clear, what I said was that we have the Treasury Secretary is now confirmed. Obviously, we have a broad economic team. The SEC put out a statement yesterday that I referred to, but I don't think I have anything more for you on it, other than to say, separate from the GameStop issue, the Secretary of Treasury is one of the world-renowned experts on markets, on the economy. Shouldn't be a surprise to anyone she was paid to give her perspective and advice before she came into office.
Now, before you guys react to that, I just want to share one fact, which is the sum total of her speaking fees that accounts for. So she made around $800,000 for it, and okay, maybe she. So the total of the last 2 years is about $7 million. So that's about a tenth of her speaking fees. So that's not an insignificant amount. So anyway, you guys can go at it now.
Well, I remember when, her name was first sort of put up for Treasury Secretary, and people were already bringing up the speaking fees, the Wall Street speaking fees, as clearly a conflict of interest. And you guys probably remember that, a large segment of the liberal commentariat, I guess you could say, sort of just immediately like ran to cover her and to say, well, you're only criticizing her $7 million speaking fees because she's a woman. And to me, that is just the most cynical deployment of identity politics that I can even think of, like running cover for somebody's Wall Street speaking fees when they're in a position to become the person who is probably more responsible than like any other policymaker in the US for shaping and steering fiscal policy. I mean, it's crazy, and it's really funny that in this particular moment on this day, we get this information that one of her big donors is Citadel.
Hmm. And and I want to remind people, just if they weren't watching the beginning of the show today too, that Citadel pays Robinhood a substantial amount of money for a data feed, which allows it to act in opposition to all of the people who are trading on Robinhood, so that they can put themselves into an extremely profitable position. So to act like any connection to this company, to investigate this very particular and specific instance, to say that that's non-material is complete nonsense, right? But it would be nonsensical to say it was immaterial, even if it was just like Janet Yellen was like good friends with one of the board members. To say that somebody getting paid nearly $1 million is not a problem. Oh, it's because she's a girl boss and she deserves the money.
Right,
I'm
right.
sure, like I'm sure Janet is a very smart and accomplished person. Whatever. That's all well and good. But I do like the fact that I live in a democracy, and anybody who is supposed to be charged with publicly regulating these companies and looking out for our best interests, it is completely imbalanced to ask questions about somebody getting nearly $1 million from them.
And I also want to add, just to go back to what we were saying earlier about, your various right wing figures from Ted Cruz to Barstool Sports Guy, like suddenly trying to act like they're populist. Of course, we're in the US. We know that the Republican Party is the party of big business. They're not looking out for people on Reddit, let alone, your average working person. But when the Janet Yellen stuff happens, and the Democrats just kind of
Mm,
circle the wagons,
mhm.
that gives them more ammunition. And like, I think that's the thing that like really, really like really like gets to me, like don't let these fake right-wing populists have the upper hand when it comes to attacking Wall Street.
Yeah, somebody tweeted out that a NPR guest today made a comparison to Gamergate, and I thought that was really annoying that that comparison would be made. But it strikes me that like if it's the game, because I think the fundamentals are different, right? The anti-feminist media thing versus anti-Wall Street. I think the Gamergate lends itself more to reaction. But if the Democrats screw it up, then yeah, there's no, there's, and which they very easily could already with this Yellen stuff. Then yeah, you might have something that could funnel people to the right.
I have to make a confession, which is that I never really understood what Gamergate was, and I don't think I understand still, despite having watched the Law and Order SVU episode that was based on Gamergate. But I gathered that there was some, online harassment of, I guess, women journalists in kind of the tech sphere, right?
Mhm.
Basically, yeah, exactly.
Right. So, what is the connection to GameStop that Wall Street bros are getting harassed?
It was like it was literally you're harassing hedge funds, basically.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, exactly, right? These are not the same things at all. But like as far as like the culture, like these people like
Mhm.
Barstool trying to make it into a cultural vehicle, it's like what stands in their way is the Democrats failing. Like
Mhm.
if we actually respond to this moment of revealed absurdity, by if that party does with something that actually does something about it, then Ted Cruz and Trump Jr. won't be able to make out of it. On the other hand, if it's just like Janet Yellen can speak to whoever she wants to and cash these checks, we're gonna have a real problem on our hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, honestly, like Janet Yellen is not somebody I would have involved in any Bernie Sanders cabinet, or in any like even progressive candidate, even a Warren candidate, cabinet, for God's sakes. Um, but the fact that they don't even have a better defense. Like there have been corrupt, officials who have gotten into high positions of power in cabinets, right? Who have severe conflict of interest, and they come up with, stories or kind of defenses for that, or even just say, "I'll recuse myself for these kind of things." The fact that because of like woke neoliberalism. They think that they can actually just sidestep pretty serious, allegations and relationships by just saying, it's about time that women get paid for the work. It's like, again, yes, but nobody honestly earns $1 million. There's no speech that is actually so good that you should make $880,000. That is a payment, and that is a bribe, and that is a bribe that is payback for what you did at the Fed. And this is a down payment on what we hope that you're going to do for us in the future. To act like we're all stupid, like this is legalized bribery. Everybody understands it. That's why you invite these people to do this.
Mhm.
It's like to act like we're all so stupid out here, just mouth breathers, not understanding this insanely clear open air corruption operation.
Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, I sometimes think back to 2016, unfortunately, and that Democratic primary, and the sort of same dynamic played out because Bernie criticized Hillary Clinton for taking vast amounts of money from Wall Street,
Mhm.
and that was kind of when I think you started to see the roots of this sort of, well, like if you criticize Hillary Clinton for taking Wall Street money, isn't that a little sexist? Didn't she earn that money?
Yeah.
And I think the ploy is really wearing thin at this point. Like I remember in 2016, a lot of people were already calling bullshit. But
Mhm.
I think people wanted to be very earnest also about talking about sexism, and well, we know that Hillary Clinton is subject to double standards as a woman politician, and trying to be sensitive about that. But at this point, it's like we know what you're doing, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm sometimes hopeful like that too. I mean, I remember the whole like, was it if you tax Wall Street, you won't end racism line? Was that
Mm.
I
A
think that-
classic, yeah.
Yeah,
If
and
you break up the banks, that won't end
break up the
racism.
banks,
That
right? And
was
it's
good.
like, and so now like the way, and this kind of brings me to this Joe Biden clip here, where the phrase structural racism, and people should check out Jen's writing for Jacobin, because a lot of it is illustrative on this point, in these sorts of topics. But they're using the phrase structural racism, and then he'll immediately talk about hate, which like I feel like we're kind of moving away from structural racism again. But here's Joe Biden from, I believe this was, the Democratic National Convention here.
Maybe George Floyd murder was a breaking point. Maybe John Lewis is passing the inspiration. But however it's come to be, however it's happened, America's ready, in John's words, to lay down, quote, the heavy burden of hate at last, and to end the hard work of rooting out our systemic racism.
Now, I think he kind of fumbled the line there a little bit too, maybe. But like, actually, let me just play a little bit more. Sorry, because what he follows this up with is the hate part, and I think that's kind of relevant.
American history tells us that it's been in our darkest moments that we've made our greatest progress, that we found the light. In this dark moment, I believe we're poised to make great progress again.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it was the other clip where he mentions hate, but where he's talking, which we'll play a little bit later, where he is talking about. Let me get off.
He did sound like he said something about hate.
Maybe
like
I missed
earlier.
it.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
I definitely heard the word hate.
Yeah.
So the structural racism isn't like about people having too much hate in their hearts, or is it?
I mean, obviously, I don't think it is. But I have noticed that structural has often come to mean just like very or extremely. So when people say structurally racist or structural racism, so often they're really just saying something is really, really racist, or like very seriously, importantly racist, right? And I think that there's two things going on. I think there's the sort of liberal sleight of hand, which I think is what you're getting at with Biden, where he can kind of invoke phrases like structural racism, but he's really actually talking about sort of interpersonal feelings, or whether you hate or whether you don't hate. But I do think also that the term structural is broad enough that even a lot of times on the left, it's not actually clear what people are referring to. So I don't know. Like, do you guys sense that as well?
That's interesting. I've mainly fixated on the thing where it's, you know, we understand racism as like a massive structure like created by capitalism, right? I mean, maybe that's a little bit reductive, but I feel like somehow, and that's what it's supposed to mean, and then somehow it comes up through the Democrats, and they're like, okay, that's safe enough for us to use. It's not really going to get the point across enough, and we can basically just have that and just denude it of the actual meaning.
Right, totally. Yeah, that reminds me of how over the summer all of these corporations that wanted to sort of express how like woke they were
Mhm.
suddenly started condemning systemic or structural racism like on their Instagram feeds, which of course is again so broad or so general of a term that they can conveniently like sort of not implicate themselves in systemic racism, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the NFL having end racism behind the end zone
which is
now
such a
after
joke.
they
Yeah.
literally blackballed a guy for speaking out about racism.
Right, right. Or Amazon being like, we condemn systemic racism when, you know, they treat their warehouse workers, all their workers actually, like total shit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or it occurs to me Joe Biden himself, where he's telling like black leaders, including for the NAACP, like, can we just cool it on defund the police and BLM before the Georgia elections?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like denying, like, let's play homage, pay homage to like this idea, right? And to create racism into something that is almost ethereal, right? It's like almost like a spiritual force. And once you do that, it's actually something that you can never touch, right? If
Hmm.
like racism is just like something that's like in people's souls, and you have to hope that like through prayer and like hope and for from reading White Fragility enough times it will go away, um, right? Then you just will never be able to touch it, instead of actually recognizing its very significant and continuous role in like American capitalism, also global capitalism, obviously, as something that has developed out of a need to profit off of people in general, but also
Hmm.
extra on certain people. So what the Field Sisters line on this is perfect. It's like, some people think that American slavery was a system to create racism. It's like, no, American slavery was a system that was designed to produce cotton, and
Right.
racism was one of the byproducts and mechanisms by how that system functioned. But its goal was to produce cotton. And
Hmm.
when American liberalism has done very well, I have to say, like at least the public understanding of these issues is completely sidestep the economic reality, the capitalist reality of the system, and to create something that in people's minds, again, is like this spiritual force almost, is something
Hmm.
immaterial.
Yeah.